Creating Connections podcast, episode 61. Today, Vickie and I get to chat with a fellow industry friend, hashtag FIF, fellow industry friend, Dave Ternier of adjthought.com, and what you can find at adjthought.com. What rolls around in the head of adjthought.com?
That was nice and easy.
What are you talking about? This also speaks to a much bigger issue.
Providing personal solutions through understanding people. This is the Creating Connections podcast with Gitomer certified advisor Mitch Taylor and certified personality trainer Vickie Musni.
All right, welcome back to Creating Connections episode 61. I'm Gitomer certified advisor Mitch Taylor.
And I'm certified personality trainer Vickie Musni.
And today we have a very special guest. Now, This is actually his second time on our podcast.
Yes, last time though I wasn't here for that episode.
Right. I can edit you out this time too.
I can just hang up if you want. Leave meeting. No.
We welcome Dave Ternier to the podcast. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you both for having me here again. This is fun.
How are things in Manitoba today?
100%. Yes. Temperature's nice and mild. It's everything is clicking along really, really well. In the midst of getting ready for a big move, actually, but that's another topic.
You always have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I try to do my best.
Yeah.
So, Dave, tell us about the genesis of adjthought.com, your blog that you started.
The genesis of it was quite simply, I was sick and tired of creating, well thought out responses to people on Facebook on a particular topic.
Yeah, you were tired of writing really long Facebook posts?
No. That wasn't somewhat bothersome. But I was tired of having something I might take the time to write on Facebook, then get lost in the Facebook history of good luck ever finding it again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's precisely where the blog came from, where the idea originated from. It was just a central place where, I see something on Facebook that, I can maybe add some benefit to. Well, I'm going to write a blog post about it, share the blog post, and then I can reference it later for someone else who is going to inevitably approach the same topic on Facebook.
And I've seen that happen.
No.
Let's avoid that topic.
But you have quite a few blog posts that have come up regularly, and all of us, in even months or years after you've written them, they will resurface again because of that very reason. Either somebody's asked the question or they're dealing with that issue, or one of us will say, hey, have you read this post that Dave wrote? Because you need to.
Yes.
Can we talk about just like a few of like our favorites, our favorite posts? Because I know I've got a few that I see the most, but
sure, yeah.
Right now, I tried to shut everything else off my computer so I wouldn't have alerts going on while you're recording. So, the very first one that you and I first connected over was your file management system.
Yeah.
Tell us all about that.
It's
Not about specifically the mess you cleaned up for me, but just about in general.
So here's the thing. It's such a boring blog post. Like, seriously, how mundane, how dull of a topic could you seriously approach? But I have received more comments and more feedback, positive feedback, I should qualify, on that silly blog post than anything else. And wonderful, I suppose. It did come in response to people just saying, Dave, how can you in 10 seconds or less find any single file you own from any event ever, from any conversation ever? How do you do it? I'm like, doesn't everybody do this? Or it's one of those things, right? So apparently everybody doesn't do that. So I geeked out and put a whole blog post together, complete with screenshots of how my folders are structured and blah, 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 and created a duplicate template of that whole hierarchy of folders so that people can download it onto their own computers if they want to try my method. And yeah, it's strange, but it's been popular.
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that a lot of us get into the wedding and events industry not because we're necessarily great at organizing details and that side of the business, but we're really all about the event side, and we need help in the other areas.
And some of us are beyond help.
None of us were organized enough to become wedding planners, so we became DJs instead.
Wow.
No, it's well, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it very much goes along with the personalities that we often find in the DJ world too, right? I mean, the types of people who are often in entertainment, these types of these traits, I suppose, aren't necessarily native to a lot of people.
You can say it. There's not as many blues in our industry as there are in a lot of others.
Well, and Dave's right. The creative artistry that you must possess to think outside the box, if you will, and produce an event and perform at an event and look at that blank canvas doesn't lend itself to the hierarchy of file structure. Just saying.
Right. And I think further to that, those who maybe do have it, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything, but I think those who do have, a good mix of all, you'll see those people maybe, having some level of success that other people kind of look at and go, I don't get it. I'm doing the same thing as him. What's the difference?
Yes.
Well, that's a nice segue to a more recent blog post that I don't even know how many hundreds or thousands, I don't know, hits you had on that last one that you wrote about. It had to do with organization, but it was specifically about prep, was it not?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, that one was weird in that, again, my intention of sharing it was one, it became something else, but the blog post you're referring to is one called Final Wedding Prep Checklist, and it's just my purpose to sharing it was just to provide people with maybe an easier way to manage those days, weeks leading up to an event. And what it became, well, pardon me, that was one purpose for sharing it. The other purpose was for those who aren't doing any of those things within their events, maybe they, looking through it, would get an idea and go, whoa, Dave's, well, what are you doing here? I don't get that. I don't do that. What are you doing? So I thought it would give people a bit of an insight into my business, maybe, particularly speaking for the Canadian DJs, many of whom don't MC. I thought they would give them a little further insight into it. And then, of course, as you both know, it shared about this, look, do you prep this much? Do you,
Yes.
Look at the time he's putting in, look at how well this communicates value to the service that he or she is providing. And yeah, it rapidly became, I think, past everything, even from 500 to 3,500 blog posts. I think it's become my most viewed blog post by far, which is strange. Again, such a boring topic.
But it's not. And it was, the post itself was short and sweet, and we'll have links to all of these that we'll share too, so people can find what we're talking about if they haven't read them yet. But I know for me, it was just that visual of, wow, I do a lot of these things, but I'm not naturally organized. I know that's a shock to both of you, but I don't think about them in terms of how long I spend on each one. And that was just really helpful to me, rather than having this vague idea, oh yeah, it's a month before I ought to start doing, part of this, or oh yeah, it's 3 weeks before I ought to start working on this. It was like, okay, well, how many hours is it going to take me to craft this piece of what I'm going to be presenting, this part of the script, this, planning for these ceremonies or writing these introductions. And then for me, knowing that, wow, I'd probably be a lot more efficient if I turned off, my everything else and put my phone on airplane mode, which I sometimes do when I'm working, just to get rid of the interruptions and really block out, okay, I need 2 hours to write, this part of the script. I don't know, that was just really, really helpful to me. And then of course you saw when I shared it, I actually started to share it with just my industry friends. And then I thought better of it, rewrote my post, and then shared it with everyone. And basically said, hey, if you're in this industry or not, if you've ever planned a wedding or an event of any kind or thought about hiring a DJ, do they do this level of preparation? Because if they don't, something's missing. And that was all I said. I didn't say, hey, I do this too, because there's things on there that I don't do. There's training that you've had that I have not taken and services that I don't provide. But a lot of it I do. And I don't know, I just saw it as an opportunity to show people DJs do more than show up and just hit play.
Yes. And when you can show that level of dedication to a client, especially, going back to Vickie's book, the blues that are much more analytical and want to see, like the mother the bride I had on the phone the other day, she wanted, what's exactly included in that package. When you can lay that out and give her something tangible, physical to grab onto, that's going to help cement your value that much more.
Yeah,
100%.
and I'm not saying it's something that you should show every client.
No.
But there are some parents that are going to stroke the check for, the top dollar that you guys charge. They're going to want to know exactly where it's going.
Yeah.
And they need to have a better understanding of why, because they've never seen somebody else do 30 to 40 hours of prep for an event. They've only seen the DJ that just shows up, or the family member, in your case, Dave, that comes to MC, that doesn't plan what they're going to say. Because they know everybody. Why do they have to prepare anything?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to get, before we wrap up here, we've got about another 3 to 5 minutes, and Lord knows we could spend way more than that on this next one. My favorite blog post that you have created, and I love the other two we already mentioned on this podcast. My favorite had to be the $500 to $3,500 journey.
Yeah, that was the other one I wanted to hit for sure.
It's very similar to my journey, but I want to get it from your perspective. Why share that journey?
We even quoted part of that in our Creating Connections book.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Well, why share it? The answer to that's easy, because nobody talks about price, much less writes about it in such a detailed fashion. That was my initial, I guess, reason for doing it. And I wanted to demystify how one gets from 500 to 3,500, because I think it's just too much for a lot of people to handle. They look at it and go, not a chance, not here. I don't have the time, yada, yada. And I wanted to show people how incrementally small the steps were that took place, I guess, between that. Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to share what were some maybe not so obvious ways to get there as well. Mm-hmm. Thankful for the response that I've gotten to that. And, and
honestly, I love the fact that you two are having this conversation in particular, because the not here, not my market is something that we hear so much. I can charge $3,500 for a wedding, not in my market. And I hear people in big cities say that. And I look and I'm like, talk about my two friends that live in the most middle of nowhere places I have ever been to. It's you guys.
Well, I love when I'm having a conversation about this with DJs, and maybe they don't necessarily know where I'm from. And you're right, Vickie. They'll say to me, oh, Dave, you don't understand. I live in a small city, small town, yada, yada, yada. And I'll say, well, how many people live in Cleveland, Ohio? And they'll tell me, right? And they'll say, well, let me tell you about Virden, Manitoba. There will be, 3,198 people when my wife and I move out of this town, in a month's time. And, I have to drive 45 minutes to get to 40,000 people and 2 more hours to get to 500,000 people.
Yeah. I remember walking from your house and you taking me on the tour of your town and pointing at a building on the other side of the railroad tracks going, that's one of our 2 pubs.
Right. Well, and I have to follow it up with people and say, look, if I was in a community of 100,000, 500,000, 1.5 million, God, I can't believe where I might be price-wise, because I'd have so many more people to expose what it is that I do to. I mean, I only receive so many inquiries due to the law of where I live, the number of people that live here. So yes. When I get an inquiry, I have to make the most of it. Now, that's probably an advantage I have over people who live in big markets that puts them at a disadvantage. They don't need to work real hard at every inquiry. They can afford not to, because they know they're going to get so many more. Me, I have to. And as such, I've put myself through every pace I can find to really develop how I communicate my value really, really well. as a result of my situation. And that's a massive benefit to me that people in larger markets don't have because they're not forced into that situation. Maybe that's the way to put it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that, Dave. And it's so important to differentiate yourself, the value you provide, and especially when you do have a lower number of inquiries coming in than others. I think, the population versus price debate is all relative to a point. As you get larger populations, you're going to have more entertainment options for people to choose from. So it's relative to a point, I feel. But yes, you're absolutely right. Those of us that work in small towns do have to make sure we are conveying value at a stronger, a higher level than those who don't, because you have less swings if you're at the plate.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good analogy for that, Mitch.
Maybe my next blog post should be, want to learn how to charge $3,500, move to the country and move back to the city after.
Oh, too funny. Too funny. Well, if you want to get more perspective on a djthought.com, we're going to include the links down below of how you get to the site. It's just a djthought.com. Check out Dave's blog. He's a man of many, many insights, many resources available to you. And he is also a member of the CPDJA, correct?
You have a title, though. You're not just a member. What is your official title, Dave?
I don't know. I help connect members to education.
I thought it was like vice president of education for the region or the country or the continent or something.
Yeah, VP Western Canada, with a focus on, creating educational opportunities for the members. So connecting them to, what's out there. There's not a whole lot of the training out there that I haven't taken. There are a few, but it's a pretty short list. So
it's a perfect role for you.
Hoping to develop that over the next 12 to 18 months. We've run down one road already, a slight hiccup, so we're going to try another one, and we will make things happen.
Okay.
Awesome. Kudos to you, my friend. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you both very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. I'm Gitomer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor.
I'm Certified Personality Trainer Vickie Musni.
That's Creating Connections Podcast Episode 61. Visit us at creatingconnections.biz to get on our 31-day challenge of ways you can improve your communication skills and strengthen your connections. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Creating Connections podcast with Gitomer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vickie Musni. For more information on providing personal solutions through understanding people better, visit creatingconnections.biz.